So that Astra Anime Awards got fucking released. And I saw those, right? And it filled me with like this indescribable fucking rage. The fangirl in me was like, how did Apothecary Diaries, Dungeon Meshi, and Freerun all get snubbed so hard? And then I took a step back and I reanalyzed it, right? And somehow it all comes back to misogyny. Now, hear me up. Hear me out. Hear me out. Okay? So, first, all art is political, whether we like it or not, right? Whether it's a political art piece or comedy, right? Well, I was thinking, and I'm like, what is like the oil water like separation here, like separation happening here that let Solo Leveling get all these awards, and Free Ran and Apothecary Diaries and Dungeon Meshi get snubbed, and then I thought about it and I was like, the previous top three amazing animes of all time that I mentioned, um, they all have one of these three components: not catering to a male gaze, written by a woman, and have a female main lead. Now hear me out. Y'all are gonna be like, Gavin, how does this matter? Well, let's take for example the best main character award. Mamo didn't get it. You know who did? The knockoff fucking Kirito from Korea did. Okay, okay. Now, a lot of you may be thinking like, is it that serious? It is that serious, right? Because let's take a step back. The main viewer base of a lot of anime is men. And as we now know, like in current politics, a lot of men crave this power fantasy because due to how the patriarchy is set up, a lot of men don't feel like they're fulfilling, this fantasy that they were told they had the right to. And a lot of them do use anime as escapism, and that's why we see a lot of incels and like right-wing people in the anime sphere. For example, the amount of fucking right-wing incels that have guts as their profile picture. It's like Goodnight Girl, like GTFO. But yeah, and like let's think about it, right? Solo Leveling doesn't have any deeper messaging that really resonates with anyone, especially not politically, right? And these other three anime do. And I was like, how do people not like, or how are they not like just like sat and like ruminating with themselves over these anime? But then it reminded me of a conversation I had with one of my ex male friends, and he was like, "Oh, I don't interact with politics because it doesn't really have an effect on me. It's never that serious at the end of the day, and you gotta re." And I was like, well, news alert, if you are a person that lives in our current modern society, politics affect you across the board. Across the board, no matter where you are, who you are, what age, when you were born, where you were born, they affect you, right? And I was like thinking about it a little more. And I was like, I was like, if I was a man, a straight man, removed from any politics versus a woman, in the same boat removed from politics, and I watched Apothecary Diaries, what I experienced is the same. Because why I love Apothecary Diaries is because first, I love studying history, right? I want to be an anthropologist, I want to be a historian, um, gay, and I also, for a lot of you that don't know, on my old TikTok that got banned, I got banned actually because I was clocking tea against right wingers, left, right, and center, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, eating them up. But I was like, if I watch Apothecary Diaries as a straight man versus a woman, would I experience it the same way? And the answer is, well, no, because Apothecary Diaries, the reason why it works so well is because, first, it's exploring more feminine themes. It's exploring literally what it means to be a woman in a society that disenfranchises you. Mao is a teenage girl that was literally trafficked, right? And she's in a society where women's roles are only seen as being like concubines, servants, and wives, and you see how Mao is over here, we're in her thoughts. We're seeing how she's, kind of navigating how to not draw attention to herself so that she's not executed for like stepping out of line. Literally one of her main like points of why she did not want the court to find out that she can fucking read is because she did not want to be up in them political schemes, right? And she and we see how she thinks. We see her upbringing. We see how she applies her love for poisons and her knowledge to find solutions when people won't listen, and like and especially in like a male dominated field like in the imperial court, literally all the apothecaries, like the main apothecary is a eunuch man. He's not gonna think about, he wouldn't have picked up on the lead in the white foundation that the concubines wear the same way Mama would have, because she's a woman and she's been raised by women and she just has these very feminine experiences. And if I was a straight man and I saw the scene where Mama's talking about how she wants to get executed, right? And I wouldn't be able to clock that this is her, trying to exert some small amount of control she has in a society that won't let her have that, And I wouldn't see it as, her trying to take control and die with something she loves, poison. As would a woman. Like, a man wouldn't resonate as deeply with the fact that Mama has to make herself more ugly to feel safe as would a woman. Especially the phrase of, oh well, what were they wearing, doesn't hit men the same as it does a woman. Right? And then I was thinking about it too with free reign, where now it's a more modern school of thought that men have emotions and we should try exploring that, and men should try actually embracing their emotions. But if I'm a straight man, I'm a 14-year-old boy that's essentially a border, probably an Andrew Tate stan, right winger, no experience in politics, right? And also I'm trying to seem like this tough, whatever. I'm not gonna go into free reign and be like, wow, the way that they explore emotion and death and what it means to love and friendship and what it means to allocate your time with someone means. I would not, if I was that straight man, I wouldn't be getting the same feelings, I'd be like, wow, this is very real to me, because men typically just don't explore their emotions and aren't going to be able to resonate with that messaging. And or Dungeon Meshi too, it doesn't have a lot of fan service, and it's exploring these more emotional themes of hunger and dreams and false hope and delusion and grief and love and family. And I'm probably not gonna have the same appreciation for it, especially if you're not a historian. Girl, when I say the fucking line where, let me think, what was it? When Marcel said, magic doesn't know morals, humans do. First of all, clocked that T so hard, not even funny. But when you take that line out of the anime, that's just literally science. That line applies to how science has been seen in history, where a lot of our scientific developments were from morally dubious acts, but the knowledge that came from it is without morals. Because guess what? A lot of our stuff that we know about, anatomy and medicine comes from grave robbers. But Dungeon Meshi wrote that beautiful line and had all this political theming and messaging, and if I was just a straight man that didn't really involve himself with politics, I wouldn't have that appreciation for it. And it goes much deeper than just anime. It's all art, where men don't see the societal value that art has and aren't experiencing it in the same way as a minority would, And it really does, like, kill me, because it's like, there is no deep political messaging from Solo Leveling. I'm so sorry. Like, there is no deeper, like, messaging in Solo Leveling that hasn't been covered before that there is in Dungeon Meshi, Free Ren, and, well, Free Ren's not really political, but in Apothecary Diaries. And this, like, permeation of these more typically feminine things of exploring emotion and whatnot in art, it gets snubbed. It gets snubbed because, you know, men aren't willing to put themselves in that, you know, like, ring. And it kills me, because it's just like, wow, we're so, like, the year is 2025, and we're still letting these basic, bland, male focused, unoriginal stories win over truly visceral, emotional, like, tales, epics, legends, don't care what you call it, because that's what they are, and they're genuinely beautiful. But we're just like, we're letting a basic fucking action anime that feeds a male power fantasy win awards over these masterclasses in storytelling. And it's like, throughout history, that anything that, like, a woman or a minority does, especially in art, is never given its flowers, you know? And, like, back to Apothecary Diaries, a man is not going to resonate with the things that Mao Mao does, or is not going to understand that, because men have never had to use pen names or have never been barred from institutions of knowledge, you know? And it kills me, because it's like, and again, even when things do try to explore emotion, like in Solo Leveling, when the main character cried after, like, saving his mom, there was discourse on men being like, ew, imagine, I could never. And it's like men continue to bar themselves off from exploring more emotional and deep themes. And yet when I talk about the male loneliness epidemic and how men suffer in silence, but it's like, mama, you're doing it to yourself. And these awards just remind me that no matter what, somehow these things seen as more feminine will never be given their flowers, by not people, because there are people giving these anime their flowers, but by, like, major institutions. And it reminds me of how deep and how sinister the patriarchy is within everything we do, you know, politically, leading up to this moment. And, like, it genuinely, like, does bring me grief, because I'm thinking, and I'm like, if I sat down, like, a freshman from my high school to watch Apothecary Diaries, what would he say? Like, what would they take away from that? And I don't know, there's something so insidious about it. Because even going into, like, more male-centered anime, like Jujutsu Kaisen and, like, Chainsaw Man, all I ever see most of the men talking about is the action and not, like, the deeper meaning. Like, Jujutsu Kaisen literally means, like, sinister cycle, and, like, the whole story, even though not really, like, well executed, but hey, I love JJK, don't get me wrong, is about breaking these cycles. And it's, like, highlighting, like, how in Japan the cycles of work and the lack of value on people versus the work that they do is inherently harmful, even to, you know, the younger generations. And, like, we have to break that for, you know, us to truly, like, move on further, because it's the root of a lot of our systemic issues, you know. Or, like, and, like, it also tackles, you know, male loneliness with Geto, if we want to go there, where he is, like, literally poster boy victim child of, like, male loneliness and not being able to express his emotions and say how he really feels, you know? And it leads him to his death. But then furthermore, it leads him to becoming this talking piece for, you know, it leads him to be this, like, harmful talking piece for Jujutsu supremacy. And if you could replace Jujutsu with fucking, man, and he becomes this talking piece for male supremacy, similar to many other incels, you know? But that's just my personal reading. I know, fucking 8. I know. Give me a Nobel Peace Prize. Or, like, Chainsaw Man and how it covers, you know, male SA and the objectification of men, you know? The main character is only seen as this fighting machine sent here to, eat the fears of man, and how he gets put on this pedestal by society for only being a tool, essentially, and not necessarily a person. And like, even though the objectification isn't the same way as a woman gets objectified, it's still this like form of like male objectification, and it covers that. But we don't see men covering that, and it kills me because like I need us to like unlock our third eye a little bit and like delve deeper into it. Put the like art is already political, but let's start speaking on them politics, because I'm tired of seeing these mediocre like basic male power fantasies always getting given the light and these pedestals and being praised as something more than they are, because you know what, it's something more than it is, because it's not doing anything new. There's no new messaging underneath. There's it's just to feed ego, but we need to feed our minds. Okay, like Erykah Badu, that mental fruit. But yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today, because holy shit, them awards were so bad.